Another episode, another season on deck for these rebuilding Red Wings. A way to describe this team for the majority of this series, I'm sure, by the time we're all said and done with it. An interesting re-sign phase coming up here. Going to have to slightly rework the coaching staff and the scouting department as well, but not too worried about that. We'll do the majority of it off screen. But looking at the team right now, of course, this past draft is really highlighted by the addition of our forward, Mr. DeAndre Carlton from the Saginaw Spirit. Excited to see what he can do for this team. Aside from that, though, it was rough at times. Goaltending-wise, we still only have 4 people within the system. And looking at it here, I don't know if we're going to sign Cyrus Hansen out of the gates. That's the type of person who we could just let be for now, because we don't really have a spot for him. I mean, Lennox and Lowe are likely to be the goaltending tandem, although perhaps I do go with Lennox and Pirinen just to see what happens this season. I mean, we know Pirinen has really kind of capped out at this point in time. Lennox not really getting to where I'd like him to be. So we're in a bit of a rough spot there when it comes to goaltenders. Defensively, we don't really have any deals to work through, do we? I mean, Jamie Drysdale's deal was taken care of. He's the only guy who's going to end up being a UFA, at least amongst the defensemen, by the time his contract's done. And speaking of defensemen, I mean, we do have LaCosta, we have Anderson as well. We might be at the point now where it could just be worth not signing players until it's time to sign them and just letting them develop otherwise, because unfortunately, I mean, aside from Drysdale, where it worked out tremendously, you can make the argument, where would Bales be as a higher overall from the NHL time he's gotten, or would he be a higher overall had he played in the AHL and spent a little bit more time in the CHL? Different approaches that you can take to building a series, for sure, building a team in this way. When it comes to the forwards, the only position that we have to worry about, Brennan Othmann is the top man here. And looking at it, I think we'll go for 3 years here as opposed to the 4. Now, there has been something mentioned in the comments. I think it was Ronnie who's been mentioning this. And trust me, I've seen it. If I offer 4, the word is, oh, the RFA status lies. I've never had trouble with it, though. At least I don't feel like I have. I mean, okay, for Jamie Drysdale, right? When we signed him, did I specifically sign him to the money that he had to be like, oh, he'd still be an RFA at the end of it? I don't think that was the case. And everybody else that I've signed, wow, coach satisfaction for Drysdale's not great. Every other player that I've signed is still projected to be an RFA by the end of it. So I'm not sure. We will just sign Othmann for 3 years instead of the 4, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm guessing if it has been brought up in the comments a lot, which it has been, that it's just an issue that either doesn't bother me that much or hasn't been that big of a concern, because, I mean, Brennan Othmann, if we do sign him for 4 years, I mean, he's going to get the big-time contract anyway, and the plan for Brennan Othmann isn't to see, he's on the team the full time he's going to be here. I'm just going to sign him to 4 years, I got to be honest. He's going to be on the team for his entire career, for the most part. So I'm not really that concerned about, I could get him on that one last year, and then potentially he could be off. I'm not all that concerned, really. And then when it comes I might be able to save some money down the line. Unfortunately, I do have to say with this particular series, I am a little bit concerned at our lack of top-notch prospects so far. Yeah, and a lot of that comes down to luck. I mean, I think there was one player, had we managed to add, say, Sarnia, or had the rule about Americans in the OHL, we would have had 1 or 2 extra elites. Right now, I just think our luck has been garbage. Someone mentioned it in the comments as well, and I'm sorry for not marking down your name specifically, but someone mentioned, I feel like Seattle, the Seattle with the WHL version of this challenge, we were further ahead by this point. And I feel like that is because we probably got lucky. And, of course, the big name to stand out from that series would have been Trent Bengoa. And have we had a Trent Bengoa in this series so far? No, we haven't. I mean, Brennan Othmann's solid, and, of course, we ended up with Drysdale in year 1. But I think that's the big issue right now, is we haven't had that top-notch player available to us in the draft. we haven't even had the opportunity to be like, oh, okay, cool, are we going to get screwed over here by not winning the lottery? And then we do miss out on one of those players, which is likely to be what happens by the time I actually win the damn lottery and one of those players happens to be available. So we have just had horrible luck, as Brennan Othman does actually reject that contract. I think he was the only one to do so, indeed. So let's try to get him, screw it, we'll go for 3 years for him then. Let's just set it up this way. And this would be 3,675. So I'm just going to go 3.8. We'll save a little bit of money if he signs that. Brennan still rejects. Cool, we're going full Jamie Drysdale here then, Brennan, huh? Now he wants a 2-year deal. I'm just going to give him the 2-year deal then. Screw it. You can get the money that you want. I don't even really need to save money. We have all the money in cap space in the world. So the 85% trick's not really worth it. So what we're going to do, as always, is I'm going to handle all the tedious background stuff off screen to spare you guys from having to deal with that. And, of course, that includes getting the team set up at the beginning of next season. So I will rejoin you guys in a moment with a fully established team. All right, after a decent amount of deliberation, the team is good to go. Allow me to show you what the 2025-2026 Detroit Red Wings look like. Now, the big thing you're going to notice once we hit the whole button here is that I debated whether or not I still wanted to sign players, and then there was the debate over whether or not I wanted to really prioritize things based off of overall or potential. And I've sided with potential one more time. So you're going to notice some names here that have been staples of this team that are currently missing because they're down in the AHL. But for the moment, let's break down this team. Top line of Willie Cashman, who's now 22 years old. So a little bit worried, but he's up to a 76. If he can get to like an 81, 82, he's going to be a useful player for us for the duration of this series. Centered by William McCauley, which is a pretty big spot for him to be in, of course. And then Brennan Othman, 22 as well, 87 overall for him. Second line, we have Brendan Hoffman, now up to a high bottom 6. So again, if he can hit an 80, he's going to be a very useful player for us. Centered by Tony Shepard with Cameron Merritt on his right. Third line of Alan Maldine, who was signed, just now. He was just drafted this past year, intrigued to see what he can do. Centered by Hayden Fowler and DeAndre Carlton, who of course we signed. Then the fourth line, Reed Neal, last year's first round pick, next to Harvey Brennan and Clint Cavallo. So they're sorted off of line chemistry for the most part, which I think you can tell the +5 on the fourth line going to be extremely helpful for those players. Defensively is where we take a big hit, with Jamie Drysdale in that top pairing next to Eddie McGrath, who's up to a 70. Second pairing of Matthew Bales alongside Cody LaCosta. And the third pairing is Jesse Anderson alongside Nick Stock. The goaltenders, who you would expect at this point, now 76 overall, Tristan Lennox and Howard Lowe, who's up to a 65. So the main thing here is obviously we're going to have some lower rated players, but I think it's worth it because we're still going to be a bad team no matter what. So it doesn't really make sense to care that much about Max Gallant or Ethan Cardwell at this point in time when we can get guys with a medium top 9 who might be able to make it. These guys, I don't think there's going to be that drastic of a difference right now between Cardwell at the NHL level, maybe on the third or fourth line, and then him at the top line AHL spot. I think he'll still develop relatively well. But the boost that the NHL time could provide for someone like Anderson, the hope is that he makes more progress by playing at the NHL level at this stage than he would by playing in junior, and we kind of let him play catch up to the guys who were drafted at a higher overall. Is that strategy going to work? I mean, mixed success at this point in time. But Gallant's, he's going to cap out at 77, 78. He's going to be a useful fourth liner for us already. Cardwell is going to be a useful NHL player for us as well, or at least a high mark AHL level guy for us. So I'm not too concerned about them. Same thing with Bianconi and Gretz. I mean, Bianconi, he's a medium 7th. He's not going to improve that much. I mean, probably going to be a leader of the AHL squad for years to come. So it is just right now trying to find that balance of really how we want to play this and what is the best for player development. I need to get Jade McKay into the lineup here, but he is the only one to worry about. So Derek Barnes, who is ours as well. Rene Gugnon, the Gugnot. We're going to be taking him out and playing McKay at right wing. Maybe not. Can I get rid of that minus? There we go. German, I'm sorry. So that is the team for this season. One more time, we are going to be absolutely terrible. But if anything, it's by design. And I think I'm still going to bank on this being the right idea. And whether or not it really pans out for us, time will tell. But yeah, we are the Dead Wings on steroids. Or if the Dead Wings were on steroids, we're the Dead Wings without the steroids. That said, main event time here for the first stage of this video. Let's find out who's available to us in this upcoming draft. We need someone like Rouleau, Lehoux, Vitaly, or Emerson to be a big-time player for us. And we're not going to have a single player in the top 10, at least starting off. Andrew Paris, also not available to us. Whether or not we add Sarnia eventually, maybe. Maybe we have lifelines of like, okay, you can add Sarnia. Okay, you can add the USA East. Okay, you can add guys like Connor and Bannister who are Americans, but in the OHL. But for now, I'm not doing it, and that is extremely detrimental. Holy shit! Our first player is Aiden Recchi, who right now is projected at 50. So that is... Oh boy. We're going to have to hope for some steals in this draft then, aren't we? Gene Torres of the Saginaw Spirits. Also available. Is he currently being scouted? Yeah, he is. Good. Dustin Lau not available. Guelph Windsor. Keegan Vigilante, who's also apparently currently being scouted, so that's good. Brian Pinnell, also available as well from Windsor. Who else do we have here? Oh boy, these long stretches of not having anybody available to us is troublesome. Skylar Pierce, now 19 years old, still there. This is awful. Nazir DeFazio, 17 years old, but he's already down in the 200s. We are going to have a real problem here in this draft. This is shaping up to be one of the worst, if not the worst, at this stage of the game. Unless some of these players really emerge, and they might. I mean, you look at Norm Pierce, where he was to where he is now in Central Scouting, there was a chance. Now, Pierce isn't ours, but Bass is another example. There is a chance that certain players can move up in the rankings, and maybe, just maybe, things work out for us with some low-level steals. But for the most part, this is shaping up to just be absolutely awful. A lot of Windsor players, but they are extremely low-rated. Yikes, yikes, yikes. That's only like, the second member of the Erie Otters we've seen this whole time. I think we've seen one Firebird, and he was at the top of the list. Another Windsor player, Maxwell Kunitz, Saginaw for Fairchild. We're almost to the bottom of the list here already, and obviously we're way down there in Central Scouting, and it is not a good time. Not a good time. Voros is available. Dylan Osgood from Erie. It's never good when you start to see a lot of players because you're at the bottom of the list. Just kind of shows how weak these particular OHL teams are right now and have been over the past few years. So there's a lot of players here beyond the 300s. This could be a very, very rough season for us in more ways than one. 20 wins this season for the Detroit Red Wings, which in all honesty is pretty damn good given the circumstances of how this team looked. We still finished last in the Atlantic Division. No real surprise there on 46 points. The worst team in the NHL, which, as we have seen, means absolutely nothing to us. Unfortunately, getting the top odds completely irrelevant. I'm hoping for some sort of a miracle here with the draft board, or just something with the mid-range players somehow being elites or something like that. That would be absolutely tremendous, as our luck with getting top-notch talent, as I mentioned at the start of this episode, just hasn't been there. This season, though, Brennan Othman takes a big step up. Wayne Cashman. Willie Cashman, son of Wayne. 61 points, did pretty damn well. Cameron Merritt with 49. You slowly see the point totals are stepping up quite a bit here from some of these players, which I'm excited. I mean, DeAndre Carlton put up 40 points. That might be Calder-worthy if he didn't have a crazy level of competition. So, all in all, I'm very happy with that. You look at Cavallo, only a -12. It's not too bad. And then defensively, Drysdale was still great. The plus-minus will stop him from getting a Norris. But even Matthew Bales, 35 points this year is great for him. And then goaltending-wise, obviously Howard Lowe sucked, but Tristan Lennox, he faces a ton of shots. I think that could only be good for his experience levels, I would hope. So, very intrigued to see what happens in the next 3 to 5 years for us, I would say, has to be the sweet spot. As you see, Pettersson does a great job. Someone wanted me to look at Sasha Pastujov's points, or his attributes, I should say. And I got to be honest, I don't know why he's as dominant as he is. He's very well-rounded. I mean, the puck skills category is insane, but it's not as if the offensive awareness is a 99 or the shooting. He's just insane. And it's the continued trend of created players. While it's great to have them in the game, sometimes, they do end up dominating. But then you have a computer-generated player like Nathaniel Lampkin, who plays alongside of Pettersson and just absolutely dominates. So it's not always just a player that I created to add into the game type of situation. Eric Brandstrom, one hell of a season there, leading the way for defensemen. Ian Mitchell scored 36 goals as defenseman. That's one of the highest totals I've ever seen, if not the highest. 7 of them were on the power play. Good God. That's insane. He had 300 some odd shots as a defenseman. Goaltender, the winningest was Ilya Samsonov. He had 12 fucking shutouts. Pardon my French. Double that of Swayman and Ottinger. Save percentage-wise, Ilya Samsonov has definitely won the Vezina this year. An insane season for Washington. And unfortunately for Carlton, there were players who were better, including Kent Johnson, 23 years old for the Florida Panthers. Yeah, Miroshnichenko is real, by the way. I love that he's real. Millman is not. So, not too bad, though, for Carlson. Top 5, at least in terms of skaters for rookies, with points. So with that, you know the deal. Let's sim to the end of the playoffs. The big thing for us right now is the draft, and having to hope that there's some reason for a sense of optimism heading out of this draft. And to be honest, I mean, it's happened before, right? Has the AHL team made the playoffs? Holy hell, the Grand Rapids Griffins have made the playoffs. How do you like that? Let's take a look at them. I mean, they didn't have the best record in the world, but they got it done. I was going to say, with certain drafts, we've had the moments where it's like, okay, we're not expecting much, and then the drafts do well. Jaden McKay and Max Galad had great seasons. Max Galad, probably too good for the AHL. I think that's going to benefit him very well from going back to the AHL, dominating, and then probably being in the NHL next year. Same for Michael Bianconi. I honestly think that decision to send him down for the season may have paid off in a big-time way. Purinen split time, I guess, with Corey Liston, but he had a 9.16. So, all in all, could be interesting for Grand Rapids. The argument is now here of, do I reward the players who were there, or do I send down certain players that I can? I can't send down most of them, and then most of them would go to junior anyway. So we'll leave it as is. I don't want to, granted, I can send players down. I don't want to cause a morale crisis. Odds are for just 3 games. They won 2 of their last 10 heading into the playoffs. I'm not expecting much here against the 50-plus win Manitoba Moose. They do win Game 2, lose Game 3. Game 4, series on the line, and they lose. But still, hey, they didn't get swept, and it's great to see that we actually had a playoff team for once in this series, which is honestly pretty surprising. You look back to, even the original draft to glory with the Washington Capitals in NHL 17, the series that made somebody like Chris Rumble and Nolan Patrick, Channel Hall of Famers, But, in that series, man, it was just a question of, will the Hershey Bears ever actually be successful? And they weren't, for the most part, as the Winnipeg Jets end up winning the Stanley Cup this season. We'll take a look at how that went down for them. Let's take a look at the bracket first. They beat Ottawa in 5, an All-Canadian final. The Jets beat the Senators. We'll see what their team looks like at this stage of the game. Scheifele, Ehlers, Laine, all still there. Got Mark Scheifele, Nick Ehlers, Patrick Laine. You got Joe Veleno. Woo, how nice it would have been to keep you. Jesper Foss, Vesalainen, Jake Neighbors, Brian Little, Brad Marchand at an 81 overall, now 38 years old. Marchand and Konechny on the same team would be a friggin' nightmare. Oh my God, pest overload. Tyson Barrie, Neil Pionk, Morrissey, Nudivara, Lundmark, and Dakota Georges. The goaltender was Connor Hellebuck to this day. The awards, as Hoffman showing up as an 89. The awards, Pettersson wins the Art Ross, Pastujov wins a consecutive Hart, Carlson wins his 3rd straight Norris, Pettersson wins Lady Byng, Johnson wins the Calder, Nick Ehlers the Conn Smythe, Samsonov wins his 2nd straight Vezina, as well as the Jennings. McGrath won the Masterton. It's something. Orpik in Minnesota wins the Jack Adams, Monahan wins the Selke, Pastujov to Ted Lindsay, and Kucherov the Rocket Richard. Alex Ovechkin put up the most points in the AHL. He was league MVP. I'm guessing that's Jay O'Brien scoring the most goals. Ville Heinola, top defenseman. Hugo Alnefelt, top goaltender. And the MVP of the playoffs is a dude named T. Linden for the Toronto Marlies. Ovi in the AHL, I would cry. Obviously, it would never happen. He would go back to Russia, a la Datsuk, before that ever happened. So, moving ahead here, we lose the lottery, which is fine. It does not affect us in the slightest. Retired players, though, could be interesting. Ovi ended up retiring 941 goals for Alex Ovechkin. 1,000 assists on the dot for Crosby. He retires in San Jose's minor league system, so that's crazy. Crosby and Ovechkin, Brad Marchand, Jonathan Taves leading the way for player retirements. For the defensemen, it's Roman Josi, Alex Pietrangelo, Jake Gardner, amongst others. And for goaltenders, Tuukka Rask, Varlamov, Martin Jones, and Darcy Kemper, the biggest names to call it a career. We'll get some staff members out of these retirements. It's Roman Josi becoming a coach. Martin Jones and Brad Marchand become scouts. And whether or not that will affect us, I have no idea. Pre-draft interviews I'm not going to worry about. Let's just get down to it and hope for a bit of a miracle here. Otherwise, this draft is going to be pretty rough for us if we're being honest. So the Bruins get Modine. I think they screwed up, didn't they? Maybe not. Ooh, this actually might be a weaker draft than normal at the top, which is good news because that typically means that the middle of the draft ends up being a little bit stronger. So it's promising, potentially. So our first player available here is Aiden Recchi, who at 51 on the Central Scouting ranking, a confirmed medium 9, mostly C's. A patch-ready comparison, that's rough. We have a starter goalie, though, in Gene Torres, who's going to have a decent starting overall. He should be low 60s, maybe high 50s, but not too bad for Torres there. Vigilante's okay at a medium 6. Let's just go ahead and make this pick. We're going to pick up Aiden Recchi. 6'3", 18-year-old. We'll say he's the son of Mark from the Flint Firebirds. Obviously, a number 4 overall pick. That's not what you want to see. But it could still be a player that ends up being useful to us throughout the course of this series. At least one would hope. Next up, obviously, we're taking Gene Torres. This goaltender, a gem of a medium starter. He is a 60 on the dot. So there you go. Kind of split the difference between my predictions. That's the best goaltender that we have in the system, right? Well, second best, obviously Howard Lowe at a medium elite, but considering where he is, his age, that adds to a decent little system. Next up is Keegan Vigilante from the Windsor Spits. He's 19, but we have no choice. Vigilante is clearly the pick here. He is a 58 Medium top 6. So now is where we really need some luck. You know, we need a medium top 6 or a medium top 4, maybe even a medium elite. And perhaps Brian Pinot can be that guy. Let's take a look here. Oof, weakness and faceoffs for center. Brian, let's hope for the best here, buddy. I need something. Medium bottom 6. Still a useful potential for the most part. You know, he can at least be a pretty good AHLer, but all in all, this draft is turning out to be as bad as I thought it might be. Unfortunately, there's another medium starter goalie, but we can't use him. And then we get to the likes of Ryder Bass, and we're at the stage now where I might as well just sort. So there are some unknowns, of course. That's not surprising. I kind of half-assed it because I'm like, okay, these people are way too far down. Skylar Pierce isn't worth drafting at a low 7th, even if we need defensemen. That's just horrible. You know, if you go up to a medium 7th, maybe. Although in saying that, it's a safer bet than whoever the hell else we have here. There are just so many players here where it's like they're just not going to make it. They're so low in overall. It's just not good. It's not good at all. Okay. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Who do we have for goalies at this point? We have one goalie left. It's Harrison Dalton. 6 foot, smaller goalie. Harrison, hate to tell you, I don't think I'm going to take you. For defensemen, we have 3. It's Pierce and then 2 just complete shot-in-the-dark picks. And then forward-wise, I think I'm going to remove the overagers. And we'll see what we have from there. But obviously, again, it's not looking too good. It's looking good. Matter of fact, I had to make that pun. You know, lighten up a little bit. Okay. For defensemen, it is either Brophy or McCult. Probably don't even have to pick. Let's take Dawson Brophy way the hell down there. For the record, again, I'm not expecting anything here. It's a total shot in the dark. But let's go for Dawson Brophy. Low 7th, so literally not any worse than who I had selected. That's our second defenseman. We have a goalie, 2 defensemen, and 2 forwards in this draft so far. So we'll take another defenseman and another forward. We'll handle it that way. So if we're taking another defenseman, it becomes pretty obvious who we're selecting. We are going to go for Bradley McCult with this pick, who is also below 7th, so And then our final pick of this draft, it's going to be one of the forwards. There's a shit ton of them. It's just who is worth it, especially when we're not really going to have any information. No points in 31 games. Hodgson, decent point totals. Well, based off of points, Osgood was garbage. Kunitz was okay. Voros was garbage. DeFazio was garbage. Carter was garbage. Comrie was garbage. So it is going to be either Kunitz or Hodgson. Both are 18. Both played on the Windsor Spits. Both are left-handed. So, I mean, 37 points against 32. A few more games played for Kunitz. The penalty minutes, I think it's got to be Maxwell Kunitz. Maxwell, welcome aboard. How good are you? Low bottom 6. This is not a draft that we're going to look back at too kindly. Unfortunately, our draft luck continues to be hot garbage. You know, Torres might be a part of a really good 1-2 punch in goal in the future. That's really about all we can expect from him, I would say, is that we end up, you know, again, with that decent 1-2 punch combination between him and Howard Lowe. Lowe needs to be signed. I'm intrigued to see what the what the overalls look like heading into next year. Like Bales' contract's up. And we have some moves to make. I think next year, though, might be, depending on the development of guys, you know, like Anderson, who got to play this year. And as you can tell, I forgot to sign. I knew I forgot to do something. I forgot to sign a veteran, so some of the younger contracts. Jamie Drysdale's making $19 million because I screwed up. And forgot to sign a veteran, so it reworked some of the cap hits. Good thing is, by the time we have to worry about the fact that Drysdale's making $19 million, it's not going to be a problem, so it's fine. But yeah, we're sticking with it, but we need some luck here at some point in the next couple of seasons, or it could end up being a big problem for us. That will do it for this one. Hope you did enjoy. You know the deal. Support the video, support the channel. Check out everything in the description. And of course, if you happen to be one of these beautiful people that support me on Patreon, I thank you very much for it. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, have a good one. Take it easy. Stay safe. Oh, boy.